Our next task to review, or preference setting we want to take a look at, have to do with network drive mappings. And in fact, I want to show you two different locations that can seem the same, but are in fact very different in terms of what they configure. For the first is up here for network shares. This network shares preference is what allows you to create a network share on a machine. So if you've got a bunch of desktops out there that you need to create a share that they then share their contents to other people, it's here where you go about configuring that network share. So the name, the path, any modifiers, and the user limits, and whether or not you turn on access-based enumeration for that share. However, when we're talking about network drive mappings, it's not so much that we want to create a share on our desktops, but instead point the desktops through some drive letter to an existing share on probably a file server. That happens down here under drive maps, which exists in the user configuration half, not in the computer configuration half. Right here to drive maps, you can see I've already created one of these here to the share file1/home. So earlier when we were dealing with that file server, we created the company shared location. I just added another share here for ostensibly the home drive that I've configured here to the H drive. Let's go ahead and configure another one here to company shared. So the location would be file1/company shared. We could label this as company shared, so company shared here, and then configure it to some other drive letter, perhaps the S drive, for example, so that the users would always get the same S drive whenever they needed to access their company shared location. I could provide a different credential here to connect to that share. So maybe if it's a machine in a work group, I could provide that work group username and password. And then choose whether or not I wanted to hide or show the drive. Because in some cases, you may actually want to create a drive, but then hide it from use by the user. Now, when I create this actually creates the two shares that you can see here, one to the H drive and one to the S drive. But what it also shows us is this little order item here that I want to spend a minute talking about. Because in certain circumstances, this order can become important for how different configurations get applied to machines. Now, as we've configured things thus far, we are going to hard map the H drive to home and the S drive to company shared. But what if your environment doesn't have that kind of stability? What if instead of actually having the H go to one drive and the S go to another, you'd prefer those two drive maps instead to just be consecutive for the next available drive letter for users on those machines? Let's come back here then and reconfigure this from the H drive and the S drive to the first available drive letter on this one, and then also over here to this one. Now this kind of automatically creates a situation where perhaps you could end up with the wrong drive letter being in the wrong order. Depending on how you want these set, maybe you don't want the home drive to actually be applied first. It's here where the order becomes important, because the order defines the numbered order, starting with number 1 and going through to the end, of when these preference settings get applied. In this situation, the home drive will get the first available drive letter, and then ostensibly the company shared drive would get the next available drive letter. In order to change this order, I could right-click, choose all tasks, and then move up the order to reorder things and make sure that company shared ends up getting that first drive letter. So this might not be the best example of the use of these orders, but you should pay particular attention to them if you need to make sure certain things happen in the correct order when you have multiple preferences in a single location.